Well, ladies and gentlemen, sad news out of Germany as another, what looks like to be terrorist attack has struck Germany. This time right now, 9 are being reported as dead, 50 others wounded, and this looks like it is a direct attack, not just on the people of Germany, but perhaps also on Christmas. As the story goes, a man drove a truck into a Christmas market and injured at least 50 people, 9 reported as dead. This is not the first time we've seen this. I'm joined now in studio by Leanne McAdoo to talk more about this troubling news. Leanne, what are you reading about so far with this truck that was driven into the Christmas market?
Well, they have apprehended one of the suspects that took off, and there was a co-driver as well who was killed immediately. So he was found in the cabin. They have no motive yet. They're not really giving out any names as indication of who these guys are, what the motive was, but it's very similar to the Bastille Day attack where, of course, that was an ISIS-inspired attack where they used the same big type of lorry, they call it there, a big truck, to plow through a crowd and take out as many people as possible. They're saying that the driver just was about going 40 miles per hour, didn't stop or slow down. Initially, CNN was reporting it as a truck crash, just like they did on the Bastille Day. It was a truck attack, not an ISIS terror attack. So this is a Christmas market, which they have been kind of on high alert that these Christmas markets are going to be targets of terrorist attacks. Of course, we reported last week that they arrested a 12-year-old boy who they say was highly radicalized. He was highly religiously radicalized. He was a German Iraqi boy who had attempted to detonate a homemade bomb there at one of the Christmas markets. He attempted to do it the week earlier, but his bomb failed. So here he was highly radicalized by some unknown members of ISIS, this 12-year-old kid, but he's under the age of where they're actually going to be able to charge him with anything. They do have him in a youth home now. But so they know that these Christmas markets are directly a target for these attacks. And so I think that that's what's going to come out of the investigation.
Well, and you talk about a 12-year-old boy, that's a situation where you would imagine there had to be other factors at hand to, brainwash him or whatever it is to get him to commit this act. Because, I would assume that a regular 12-year-old boy is not thinking about this type of violence, at least you would hope not, doesn't have as much, the strong religious conviction as some of these other people that we talk about when we talk about these radical Islamist attacks. But back to the truck attack, like you mentioned earlier, there are a lot of similarities to the Nice attack here in France. Obviously, considering driving the truck through the crowd, this is something that seems to be, I guess, a new move that ISIS radical jihad elements are taking.
They did encourage their supporters in their latest ISIS online propaganda magazine to use cars and knives.
And you sit here and you think about all the measurements that we take in our daily lives to try to keep ourselves safe. You think about 9/11, terrorist airplanes, okay, TSA, all this stuff. It's like, what do you do to avoid a truck crashing into an event like this? I guess now you have to set up barriers all around the road.
Or a 12-year-old boy that you're not suspecting. Cars as well. You're on your college campus, and a car plows into you.
But and I think the other interesting thing to look at here, Leanne, as we see some of these images from what happened in Germany. Talk about the response from the media. Now, the New York Post have said that ISIL has claimed responsibility. Others are saying that claim is not true. There does seem to be a hesitation when these events come down the pike. Obviously, you can understand it as a journalist. You want to get the story straight. But it's not just a hesitation to report on whether or not, okay, this was a car crash or this, that, or the other thing. But it's like they don't even want to touch the topic that this could have been radical Islam motivated. Just right off the bat, they don't even want to go there.
Well, that's the thing is you're not allowed to now be racist, sexist, homophobic, Islamophobic, and use the clues that are there continually, the patterns over and over again, because, you got to wait and just let all the facts come in, which is true. You don't want to jump the gun on these things. But, a lot of this really is because the globalists are pushing a huge open borders immigration policy, and they don't want people to turn against Angela Merkel is, still trying to get another round up there, and people are ready to get to axe her. They want her out, and this is her problem. This is what she brought to this country, and they're still now trying to tell us that here in the United States, that we need to accept these people, open our hearts. It's the Christmas spirit. What would Jesus do? We can't vet these refugees. And even in places where they can vet them, such as in Turkey with this undercover police officer. We'll get to that in a minute. But, the children, the 12-year-old who was targeted by ISIS to take on these attacks, we cannot vet them. And so, we're being asked to just open our hearts, and they're playing on our heartstrings and on our goodwill, which is exactly what Angela Merkel did with Germany. And we see how that's turned out. I mean, this is just the latest in many attacks that they've had to suffer there just in the last year. But now moving on, of course, to not being able to vet people, even when we can vet them. For instance, the OSU attacker was, targeted as a potential target for ISIS, and he was on their radar. But, then again, he was able to commit this terror attack. But in Russia, the Russian ambassador to Turkey was shot dead today by an undercover assassin who was an off-duty police officer.
Who apparently just gets in based on his credentials, which seems strange to me. That wouldn't fly in America. I don't know what the protocol is, obviously, in Turkey when ambassadors are speaking at these art galleries, I guess is what he was speaking at. But it's very strange that he's allowed this access. He's standing right behind him the whole time.
He didn't. The ambassador didn't have his regular security detail, which is highly suspicious.
And then he's able to fire multiple shots and have a message too before, and then he has a standoff with police. That whole thing is a little strange.
Well, that's what people are wondering. Who ordered the hit? Who wanted him dead? And obviously, it's like a very heated situation going on there. A lot of groups in the region have animosity toward Russia and Turkey at the moment. They're blaming Russia for the bombarding of Aleppo. And so that's what he's saying is, you kill us in Aleppo, we're going to kill you here. And then they're reporting that the Syrian moderates, the moderate rebels, were cheering this guy on, saying, Allah, take him into your world or whatever they say when their jihadists plan these attacks or carry out these attacks. But again, these are the moderate rebels that the United States has been arming. And so that's the big problem here is that we've got this proxy army with all of these foreign countries going in there and trying to take out the Assad regime. And that's what this is. It is a regime change war. And that is what's going to stop the situation that's going on in Aleppo. That's why we're getting so many mixed stories about what's going on. Journalist Ava Bartlett is saying that, the Syrians there are celebrating the fact that Assad's regime is finally regaining control. They want these terrorist groups out of there.
They just want to stabilize the country.
Right. And that's what Ron Paul said. The only way that we are going to stop this war in Aleppo and stop this civil war and all of these mass murders going on is to stop trying to overthrow the regime. Get out of there.
Well, and there's a bunch of questions regarding the Russian ambassador that was assassinated today by the off-duty police officer. So we'll continue to monitor that at Infowars.com and the Alex Jones Show, as there are going to continue to be a lot of questions with this event. But, it's very important. There's two aspects here as we talk about these stories, Leanne, that Americans are going to have to consider as far as socio-cultural issues are concerned. One, you talk about how do we vet migrants coming in here? What do you do? I mean, is this an attack on Christmas? Is this something that Americans are going to have to start worrying about? And then how do we adjust our policies? And then with the ambassador, the Russian ambassador that was shot, Americans need to really start to look into these issues, especially with Aleppo, and realize what side of the issue our government has and is on,
right? And
then what the people in Syria who are not the ones chopping off people's heads and raping and murdering women and children in the streets, and what they want. Because I'm not sure if Americans really have a full grasp on this, and I'm not even sure if it's possible, but to me, there's a lot of convoluted activity here.
A lot of fake news.
Right.
A lot of fake news. And so that's why they're wanting to be able to own that rhetoric of this is what's fake news, because they want you to believe that whatever they're telling you is the indisputable truth, and it's just not. And it's such a shame because people's lives are being taken out in mass numbers.
And these are instances, Leanne, thank you so much for coming in. And these are instances where you can talk about, this isn't a 12-year-old where we wonder what's going on. These are men that they're going to say were convicted by their religion to carry out these attacks of terrorism and hate.
In case you haven't heard, InfoWars has become the most influential media outlet in America. We're making freedom go viral. And now we are proud to announce a new weapon in the epic battle against the globalists. InfoWars Prime, where you can watch live high-definition feeds of The Alex Jones Show, plus exclusive insider videos from the InfoWars crew and behind-the-scenes action. Go to Infowars.com/app and download today. InfoWars Prime is available right now for your iPhone or Android. You will have access to exclusive videos that you can't see anywhere else. And that means live coverage of events and breaking news on location as it happens. You can also take advantage of amazing deals from the InfoWars store that are only available for InfoWars Prime subscribers. That's InfoWars Prime at Infowars.com/app. And if you can hear my voice, you are the resistance.